Hey guys, welcome to another podcast. Excited to be here this morning. Um, got some brothers with me today, Carter and Brent. Um, Brent's here with us for the first time, and this is something that we've wanted to do for a long time. And it feels good to actually bring people in and bring people out of the light, out of the dark into the light, and just to give another person an opportunity to be able to come in and share their story and to give their testimony. Um, it's always powerful to hear how God works in people's lives, and we just brought Brent on because he's got a story to tell, and I'm not going to say too much about it. But Brent, if you will just introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about you.
Sure. So my name is Brent Lyle. I live at the reservoir. I grew up in Madison. I went to college at Mississippi State and work over at C Spire as an IT guy, managing a team of 8 technical guys. And me and my wife have been married for 15 years, and we have 2 dogs. And we've just started I've started really getting serious. I got saved and started getting serious about my faith.
Okay, tell us a little bit about what brought you to Jesus.
So I've always known Jesus. Like, I grew up in the church. I got baptized as a baby, and then as a teenager, I went through something called confirmation, which is basically just publicly affirming that you're a Christian and you have faith. But I never really like. Followed it. Like, I knew I knew right from wrong, but I never actually committed myself to it. So I would be at the church. I would do good things sometimes, but like overall, it was like I wasn't like praying. I wasn't reading my Bible. I wasn't doing any of the things that really are what you need to do to bring you closer to God.
Okay, I think it's more of a relationship, and whenever you start that relationship, you just enter into a whole new thing. It starts getting real, and you start actually feeling Jesus, God work in your life, and I've seen a crazy change in you, and I'm excited you're here, and yeah. So tell us a little bit about your life before
Sure.
starting a relationship
Sure.
with
So,
God
so
and getting serious about it.
yeah, so I'll start way back in the beginning. So like when I was a teenager, my dad got sick, and he had brain cancer, and so they operated on him. I think it was like Christmas Day, and after that he had to do chemo, and I don't know if he had too much chemo, whatever, but he never got right. Like, he just mentally wasn't there, and he was probably in his early 50s, but he kind of like he shook, and he kind of, it was like he was an 80-year-old man. Like, he had aged 30 years overnight. Like, he liked to play golf and do yard work and do dad things, and just physically couldn't do those anymore. So, what happened there was my mom, who had worked part-time up until that point, well, she had to get full-time jobs. She ended up getting multiple full-time jobs to kind of support us. And then I got a job at Chick-fil-A, started working there, and I kind of had to like step up and kind of be like the man, I guess, of the household, do a lot of the things, kind of grow up quickly. And so based on that, it was like I kind of really had like a chip on my shoulder, I guess, like just kind of like it's me against the world. It kind of started that mentality of like, well, I'll just, a lot of people have sink or swim mentality, right? And so I'm a swimmer. So it's like, well, if I've got all this stuff against me, man, I'm going to rise above.
I am. Yeah,
Yeah,
with your own
I
power. Yeah.
am. And like and it was like, man, if you tell me not, I can't do something or not to do something, oh, I'm doing it. Like that's immediately confirmation that I'm going to do that something. And so I just, I started down this path of it's all me, me, me. And eventually, like when I went to college, it turned into arrogance and just, just being just not a very nice person and just, using people and to get what I want. Everybody was kind of a means to an end. And, and there was also, and I wasn't publicizing it, but there was also some substance abuse going on. So like I started drinking when I was probably 14 or 15 and, not because, like other kids do it because they see other kids, but I remember carrying a flask to high school football games in my back pocket and drinking out of the flask, not publicizing it or anything. And like other kids were doing it because everybody else was. And I'm like, it was kind of like a coping mechanism, I guess, for me.
Yeah.
And so that continued on into college. And so, I was still, all through that time though, I was going to summer, trips with the church, going on retreats. I was at, Sunday night youth group. I was at Sunday school.
Checking the boxes.
I was doing all the things, right? I was there. I was a active participant, but I wasn't really an active participant. You know what I mean? Like I was there physically, but spiritually and mentally somewhere else, right? I remember I'd be in church on Sunday mornings hungover, just barely able to keep my eyes open because I felt so bad from the night before.
Yeah.
And and so when I got out on my own, like when I went to college and you're 18 years old, living in a dorm with a bunch of other 18-year-old men, boys, whatever, young
Just like you
folks.
said earlier, the company you keep.
Yep. And you do though, and you get there and you're like, I had everything paid for. So I had scholarships. Actually Mississippi State gave me a check back.
Wow.
Because of, because I was really studious in high school and had really worked hard because I knew if I didn't, there was not going to be a way for me to actually go to college.
Yeah.
And so I crapped all that away. Like none of those scholarships renewed because I was like, oh, now I can finally like break free and be who I think I want to be.
Right.
And so what I wanted to be was this wild party guy. And I became that.
Well, it's conforming to the world.
Yeah.
You didn't have any foundation
right
to stand on. So
and so it was just like chasing girls in a fraternity, keg stands and shotgunning beers and, just being like, John Belushi in Animal House, basically, just being a clown, going on these spring break trips and meeting these people from other colleges and, man, I can drink more than you, and like, just being ridiculous. And as I did that, the bad part is I knew I was moving away from God. Yeah. And I knew because I was doing things that God was not okay with, that those things would somehow come back to me. Like I knew that. I knew, and I chose to do it anyway. So, that turned into...
You talking about that you knew that there would be consequences?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that turned into, public drunk arrests, DUIs, Like I've had multiple DUIs, just stupid things, fights, just all kinds of dumb things that would have never happened had I not, been drinking and just acting a fool.
Do you remember the moment to where you switched and said, I need to stop checking these boxes and I need to start this relationship?
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. This is, after college, still doing a lot of the things, but more of a tamer version of that. Because, I mean, to keep like a corporate job, you can't just act like every day, every weekend is spring break or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but definitely still not living right. And so it would have been right after COVID. We were all locked up and you couldn't socialize. And so I had become this social being, and I liked being around groups of people, and I couldn't do that. Well, my love of partying, I had morphed it into a hobby of homebrewing. So that's how I justified my drinking. Is it's a hobby. I brew beer, and these other guys brew beer, and it's all good. But in reality, we were just, or at least me. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but at least me. It was just me masking a bad vice,
Yeah.
trying to turn it into a positive.
Right.
And so we decided to rent a house in Pensacola Beach, in a huge house, and there were like multiple people there, multiple couples there, and this would have been in like 2021, kind of when they kind of
Sort of open back up
lifted.
again.
Yeah. And so right before that trip, my wife and I, Rachel, we don't have any children, but her dog, I say her dog, his name is Samson, because that was one of my favorite Bible verses, Bible stories growing up. So we named him Samson, and he was 160-pound, half Old English Mastiff, half Great Dane, and she loved him. She taught him how to be a therapy dog so he could go and do hospice and all these things.
That's awesome.
And so he had passed away, and it really affected her, and it affected me, like, because he was like the first thing that we had gotten together, because we both had labs prior to getting together, but he was kind of like our child, as odd as that sounds, right? And we had gotten him together, and he passed away. And so I was really in a weird headspace when I went there, because I was really sad that we had lost our dog. But like what I noticed that weekend, like no one seemed to ask about him. No one really, Brenner, how you doing? Like with Sam, nobody seemed to care. It was all about, well, here's some edibles, or here's another beer, or here's whatever, try to mask this stuff. And so I kind of left that trip telling my wife, these folks are not our friends.
Yeah.
They're our drinking buddies at best. They're our acquaintances.
So you experienced loneliness, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and so what
Isolation.
so what I decided to do was, well, I'll just kind of step back. So at that time, I had been president of the homebrew club here in town for a couple years, and so I was like, well, when nominations come up, trip was in September, nominations are in November, I think. I just decided I'll step back. I won't be so involved anymore. But I kept doing the same things, going the same places, hanging out with the same people, but not changing really anything. So go forward a little bit, and I don't know, it was around maybe Thanksgiving. I can't really remember now, but like I went to some tasting or something, and I just drank way too much, and like just got unruly. me and my wife got into an argument, but because of it, and like we literally never fight. The police got involved. No one was arrested. It didn't turn into anything. It wasn't like a rock bottom moment. But she went to my best friend's house, stayed the night, and I stayed at the house. And something happened that night slash morning, where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it by myself. I need God. Like I I've lived this false life thinking I've gotten everywhere I've gotten in life on my own. That is incorrect. God has given me everything I have. And so this would have been like a Sunday morning when I had finally figured out that like my past had kind of shaped like me having this chip on my shoulder. And so my uncle, who's a really godly man, I called him and I said, "Hey, can you come from Kosciuszko? Because I've got questions about my childhood. Because I don't understand like why things went down the way they went down. Because my parents ultimately ended up getting a divorce because I think my mom just couldn't deal with his family because they were being so terrible to her, and it was all about money and stuff, right? And so yeah, so he said sure. And so I went he I went to a church around the corner, St. Mark's, just because it was a Methodist church and that's what I knew, and so I was comfortable in a Methodist church. And I talked to the pastor there and just told him my story, and he didn't have any answers for me, but he just listened, which was really nice. Like he listened. They do something called the Upper Room, which is like a daily devotional. So I grabbed one of those on my way out and started reading the Bible because it'll have verses and then have like somebody's personalized story every day. And so I started reading those and started creating a foundation of how do I get right with God? How do I start living a better life? And so then I think on like that Tuesday, maybe my uncle came in town. He kind of explained this situation as he saw it as a third party, and that I was just more like, just a victim of circumstance. Like for some reason with my dad's family and even with my mom, like it felt like I was kind of like just not really the focus when maybe I should have been more so than I was. And so, yeah, like that was really the turning point for me. And then gosh, it was like maybe a little bit later, I found out they had like a Wednesday night men's group there at St. Mark's. So I started going there, and they were doing, they did like a year long thing with, Rick Burgess, where it was just a study of, and I never can think of the name right off the top, but it was Second Peter, I believe, like all the virtues. And so you would spend like 3 to 4 weeks on each one of them, like self control, knowledge, all those things, and it just really like changed who I was, and I was like hungry or on fire for God. Like that became my entire being. And it's really weird. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but like that whole like FOMO, like fear of missing out, like when I did that, it was gone. Like I didn't care about, oh, I need to try this beer. This new beer came out, or, it was like, none of that mattered anymore. Like, even as far as like, the goal was like, I'm going to run the IT for some big company one day. Didn't care. Like corporate ladder stuff, money, all these idolatrous things. Just like They were just gone. And that was another thing for me too, that like where I know God was working in my life is because like my mind would constantly run. Like I would be like 100 miles an hour all the time, like especially at night. And so I would have a drink to kind of like slow it down. Well, once I gave my life to the Lord, there was no more of that crazy running anymore.
No.
So I had just been filling my life with temporary fixes when I knew the permanent solution the entire time, which is,
Yeah.
and it's crazy to say that out loud, but it took me 25 years to figure that out. And that's insane.
Yeah. I do feel you, like, because I know we've talked about it before, but both of our stories kind of run kind of in
Yeah.
the same race or whatever. But I was like you. I loved alcohol. That was my vice. But one day it was always like, man, I gotta try this new beer. I'd follow beer companies on Instagram and Facebook, and I just like, oh, and I see a new one came out. Like, if I don't get it, somebody else is gonna get it, and I've got to have it. But then one day, it just disappeared, and that it was all God, and I still enjoy a beer every once in a while,
Sure.
but it's to the point where it's like, I don't need to have it every single day like I used to have it.
Right.
But it's all God, and that vice that we're relying on to get us through something, like you just said it right out of your mouth. I mean, we don't need it. It's all God that provides everything, and but we also have to come to the realization of that He can provide that instead of going just straight to what we think is going to get us through that.
Yep. Yep.
As a man thinketh, so he is. And, we've only got so much space in our hearts for things. And, if you're filling them, it's what are you filling your life with?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you begin to decrease and God has, had begun to increase. And you told me outside of this that your wife had been praying for you all this time. So thank
Correct.
God
Correct.
for her. And,
That's right.
That change is really what it's all about. And it's why we're here and it's why we're excited. And, you also need to not only feed yourself with the word, like, you said you started feeding yourself with the word, and that's the true bread of life, and his word endures, and it changes us from the inside out. And ultimately, like, I think that, I like to have that conversation of religion versus relationship. And having that relationship is just so much better. It changes you from the inside out. And that heart change and seeing that heart change in you and all the other guys that, that we surround ourselves with is amazing. So
Yep. And it's that's a big thing, Jacob, is like, Christianity, a lot of times people get so caught up in the religious part, and like, well, I go to church on Sunday, I serve, I tithe, I do all these things, but like, are you doing them because you think you have to and you're going to get in trouble if you don't? Or are you doing them because this is what your heart's telling you to do? And there's a big difference, right?
and that heart change,
That's a
it
big
takes a
difference.
little while.
It does.
It
doesn't
takes
have
effort, and submission, and for you to really humble yourself. And that's not the popular thing to do these days. It's just not. But
No.
it's all about love. It at the end of the day, that's truly what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have people that, like you said, the popular thing, it's the people that see, it's the same people that want to live for the world 6 days out of the week, but then they see, their friend going to church on Sunday and they're like, well, if they're going, I want to go.
Right.
Well, if they're serving, I want to serve. Right. But then whenever I leave this building at 11 o'clock Sunday afternoon, it's time to get back to it,
Yeah.
And, it's a hard cycle to break. It's a really, really hard cycle to break. But once you break that cycle, man, I mean, there's nothing can hold you back at that point. And,
That's right.
I serve every Sunday, and I do it from the, the joy of the Lord. The Lord loves that, I serve. I mean, we've talked about tithing before. It's sometimes it can be hard, but that's the Lord telling us, hey, like, I'm trying to help you out here. But first of all, that's really my money from the get go. And so, like, you need to be giving it back. And once you just start to submit to that, man, everything just starts to change at that point.
Yeah.
And even if you are, we're not going to talk about tithing, but even if you are tithing and your heart posture's not there, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Correct.
You cannot go through the motions with this thing. You have to, it's Easter weekend. Like the curtain was broken.
Yeah.
We received the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is what this thing's about. I'm all in at this point, and there's no going back. And the Holy Spirit is what keeps me in this thing. It's the today is Saturday, and Jesus was in the tomb, and it was quiet. But
Sunday's
tomorrow's
coming.
coming, Sunday's coming, and the same Holy Spirit that resurrected Jesus is in us, and we are free to be washed clean through Jesus Christ and have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And that is what it's about. Jesus gave us the ability to have that relationship with God, and man, that's what it's about. It's a relationship with Jesus.
And I forgot I left this out, but so right after I had decided I can't do this alone. I need God for this. I had gone to the dermatologist to check out a spot on my leg. And so there was also apparently a spot on my back that I couldn't see. And my wife was like, hey, while you're there, ask her about that spot as well. So I went right before I leave. I'm like, oh, yeah, my wife said something about some spot on my back. So they were like, oh, yeah, we'll biopsy that. So they look at it. They call me the next day and they say, hey, Brent, this is it's melanoma. It's cancer. And I said, okay, so what does this mean? And of course, my wife is crying. She's freaking out. We even told our goddaughter, Caitlin, and she was a nervous wreck as well. And so I was like, well, let's just go up there and you can ask them, because you guys know wives, they like to ask 1,000 questions and I don't have the answer. So it's like, let's just go to the source and you can ask them everything you want to ask them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play middleman. So we went up there and she asked all the questions and everything. And in that moment, I remember kind of being like, I feel like a little bit like Job maybe is God allowing Satan to test me? Is he saying, hey, Brent, are you going to go back to your old ways? Are you going to go tonight to the bar and drown your sorrows? Woe is me. Your father had cancer, now you have cancer. Like, why, or are you serious about your newfound faith? And are you going to continue this journey with me? Well, after we left the doctor's office, I said, Rachel, let's go to Pine Lake. It was a Friday afternoon, I think, and no one was there. All the staff had left for the day except for one of the guys, one of the maintenance men. And he said, yeah, they're all gone, but let's go in the prayer room and pray about it and everything like that. So we did. And then, and then I approached some of the church staff, I think on that Sunday, about it, and just, and then it was around Christmas, I think. They did surgery and cut it out, and then that's it. Like, I've had to go for checkups and everything, but I mean that was basically it. And I think that was like, I feel like that was like a mini test in the very beginning to say, hey, are you really serious about this? Because if you're not, here's your time to back out. And so I always think about that as just
Trials and suffering hits different whenever you give your life to the Lord, because we wouldn't have the resurrection without the suffering that he, endured on the cross. And we can apply just those 3 days to our life and get so much out of it. Like, when we like you say, when you go through those trials and bad things happen, bad things happen to him. Look what happened to him. And look what came out of that. Look what God can do through the suffering. It can be transformed into a new thing. So, man, that builds my faith. Like, whenever bad things happen or trials happen, it's like sometimes that's shaping your character,
It is.
and count it joy when you experience trials because it renews your faith.
Yeah. Hey, he became more like us so we could become more like him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that a lot can happen in 7 days, a lot can happen in 3 days. And all this week, things happened all this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's just our encouragement to you out there, is that if you think that, you're too far gone, or you're new to this, or, if you're going through a tough season, a lot can happen in 3 days. I've had experiences in my life to where I'm not even gonna lie, a prayer was answered, on a Sunday, because on Friday I felt like everything was coming to an end, and literally Saturday was quiet, and guess what? Sunday happened. As soon as I woke up Sunday, that prayer was answered. And it's like, man, just because he's being quiet doesn't mean that he's not with you. Typically, whenever he's quiet, that means he's the closest to you. And you just have to rely on that. We have to rely on that daily. Just knowing that, God's going to put us through tough battles in our life. It's not just going to be, happy land 24/7. It's going to be,
Comfortable.
it's going to be war.
I say that all the time.
It's going to be a war zone 24/7 because we're in a spiritual war against the enemy, and he wants every last one of us, and we can't let him have us.
Yeah. And it's really important too to find some community, find folks to fight those battles with you. I'm lucky enough to be not in just a small group with you guys who challenge me in ways I never would have imagined. I'm also in a couple small group, and that we do life together and challenge each other and serve and really ask tough questions and have meaningful conversations. And man, that's really important because it's so different from the secular lifestyle where let's just talk about the weather, or let's how's the family, but you don't really even know any of the family's name. It's just it's a whole different mindset when you're serious about it. I think it's really important to find communities, find people that are also serious about their faith, because you can ask them questions and they're going to give you honest answers, even if you don't want to hear it. I mean,
it's real. It's not fake. I'll tell some of y'all sometimes stuff. It's like, I don't even feel bad about it. I just kind of, I'm open and honest because that it's coming from like a loving standpoint.
With you guys doing this podcast, it's like, man, I don't feel like you guys are going to look at me in a different light because of my past. And that's like, and I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, is they think, oh, I've done all these bad things. God will never accept me. I can never be around other Christians, other people living in the faith. That's not true at all. We all have a past.
We all do have a past.
It may not be identical to each other, but we all have a past. We all have things we've done that we're not proud of. Mm-hmm. But Jesus literally died this weekend for us to redeem us for those things. Mm-hmm. It's so important.
What did Jesus say to the criminal?
Well, number one, the one to his right, I believe, said, I'm not going to say a word for word, so don't, roast me here. But the one on the right said, Jesus, you're the almighty powerful. Why don't you perform a miracle here and get us off this cross? And the guy on the left said, you fool, this man did nothing wrong. So, why is he even being questioned up here in the first place? And he said, today, will you let me be in paradise with you today? And he said, truly, I tell you that today you'll be in paradise with me. And that guy right there just had the little utmost amount of faith. And there's no telling what he did, all throughout his life. But Jesus showed that love. We're under the new covenant. Jesus showed that love to him, and just his little amount of faith while he was hanging there seconds before death. And Jesus said, you know what? You're coming with me. And I don't think people, I just say this real quick. I don't think people realize that, your past does not define you, like Brent said. But yeah, I can guarantee you that the four of us sitting in this room have probably done the same amount of thing that you have done, or even worse things.
Yeah.
I promise you that. But yet God still forgave us, and God still loves us, and God still loves you, and he will forgive you for everything that you've done. You just need to come to him, submit to him, and rest in that. It's not going to be easy going forward, but I promise you that it gets a whole lot easier walking with him.
Yep.
Surround yourself with brothers and sisters, and get a part of a community that cares about you, and a group, and get involved. And you're not meant to sit at your house by yourself.
Yeah.
It's just, I know it's comfortable and I know it feels good, but that's just not the case. Me and John were talking last night. It's that Jesus, look at his life. Just read the New Testament and you can see that he was involved. He was involved with all kind of different people. Not the popular crowd.
No.
He came in and made some drastic changes and did healing and all kind of different miracles. He was active in his life, and I think that we should live the same life. But I wanted to read this. This is the verse. Jesus spoke to the repentant criminal beside him on the cross. Luke 23:42 through 43. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. So no matter what, like Carter said, no matter what you've been through, no matter, if you were a drug lord, no matter if you're on the streets selling drugs and you've gotten yourself into a situation, and you are who you surround yourself with, and let's just say that you've fallen into the wrong crowd. There is hope in Jesus.
Yeah.
You can change your life. Oh, you can do a 180, and you can change, and you can come out of the darkness and into the light in an instance by giving your life to Jesus. Yeah. So it's just like boom, it can happen, man. Yeah. And that's a life full of fruit, and it's a life full of blessings. And sometimes, I can be a testament to this just through, my story is like, sometimes you live a certain life for so long and you develop these bad habits. It takes a little while. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It takes a little while for God to come in and prune you. And, especially if you're called, man, if you want to be who God truly created you to be, and if you want to live a life of purpose, and you're coming from a life where you were down a dark path, it's going to take some transformation there.
It takes time.
And that it's going to hurt, and it's not going to feel good some days.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really like is our group is basically called I Said Yes, And I think that is really important to my growth, because it's all about small yeses.
Yeah.
Continue to say yes to things. And before you know it, you're on a podcast. Just keep saying yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I do want to say this. We had met Brent, I don't know how long ago it was. I know it was last year at some point.
End of last year.
Maybe like November or something like that. And he started coming, and this is before we had came up with the idea to read the Bible through in a year. And Brent was real quiet. I think it may have been a month or two before I even actually shook your hand.
Or heard him speak.
Yeah, or heard him speak, because I'm an introvert as well. It's hard for me to just go up and say, hey, I'm Carter, nice to meet you or whatever. But when the idea came about of us, doing this, we had a bunch of guys in our group, and a lot of them, when this idea came about, a lot of them all just went, I'm not doing that. And that's okay. That's okay. God works in them in the way that he wants to work in them. But a couple of the new ones that said yes was Brent, and he has stuck with it. We've had some people that said yes that, I've been praying about them because they haven't come in a little while, and just hope that they're doing okay. But Brent has been there every single week. If not, maybe he's missed a week because he was doing something that, the Lord called him to do, but he stuck with it. And I think me, Jacob, and John in this room could say we're proud of you for sticking through that.
He said yes.
That he said
over
yes.
and over
Because
and over and over.
it's hard to walk in a room full of testosterone knowing that, what we have laying on our back, because there may be walking. It was hard for me to walk in there, but I walked in there, and eventually when you speak up and you say yes, like you saying yes is you're submitting to the Lord and what he wants to do in you. And that's a big step, because I know people say that, like, oh, how do I take a step in faith? Like, I mean, yes, we take steps every day by walking, literally.
You be obedient.
But
You
yeah,
say
being
yes
obedient
over and
by
over.
saying yes, we're taking steps in that faith by saying yes. Or like, I'm like, okay, God, like, it's hard for me to be obedient, but I'm going to be obedient. I need your help, but I'm going to do my best to do it. And Brent has been, he's stuck along with it. It's just all three of us in this room would say we're proud of you for sticking with it.
appreciate it.
100%. It's that
for joining
transformation,
this
man.
group and saying, you know what, I'm with it. Let's lock in.
Yep.
So,
I was talking to you, and you were like, I was like, what's stopping you from doing the podcast? He's like, a little fear. I'm like, well, no. Well, no, that means you have to do it now. Like, you're scared to do something. Like, we're going to motivate each other and sharpen each other daily to do hard things and step out of your comfort zone. Because, I mean, Jesus was not in his comfort zone.
No, he wasn't.
We want to live a life like him. So I want to ask you, we've went through your story here, life before Christ, you getting saved. Briefly tell us a little bit about how your life is changing and how you're living now that you are in a relationship with God, and the change that's brought on you and what you're walking in today.
Sure. So, some of the major things that have really changed is the guys have already mentioned our chronological Bible reading. So we read the Bible every day, and so got a set time, quiet time, no electronics, and read the Bible. One of the other things is I've found out I've always liked to serve, but now I want to serve so I can disciple to other people, which was not really, it was more like to make me feel good before, but now it's like, because I want to tell people the good news.
Which is the whole entire point.
Yes. So like I got an opportunity to go with my uncle and one of the men in my small group, Michael, to 8 Days of Hope and serve some folks down there and talk to them and just help them and tell them about the gospel, and that was wonderful. And I'm always looking for those opportunities. There's a group called the Jackson Street Ministry, and they go and they evangelize to the homeless in downtown Jackson, and they have 5 stops, and they provide physical needs for them, whether it's batteries, clothing, lunch. But before they do that, they tell them about God, and it's really powerful, and some of those homeless folks, they actually bring out their Bibles, Some other things like I have started recently serving at the church. I'm greeting all weekend, and that's a relatively new thing for me, because like Carter said, being an introvert and kind of doing this extrovert function, which is greeting, definitely has been a challenge for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's awesome to see the transformation in your life, and I just want to invite everybody to a relationship with Jesus, and I promise you that you're going to see and experience things that you've never thought was possible. You're going to be able to do things that you've never thought was possible. He's going to instill a confidence in you to walk and then provide you with the Holy Spirit that's going to prompt some things to happen that you're going to say, wow, like that was God.
Yeah.
Pray for that woman or pay for this or, go and reach out to this person or, it's those prompts when the Holy Spirit shows up in your life. And it's a fun journey. And I'm excited to be on that journey with you guys. So grateful for all of y'all. I highly encourage anybody that's listening to join a small group, get involved with your church, and I promise you that you're going to see life change. Be the church, don't just go to church. And this was fun. Thank you, Brent, for coming here and sharing your story and stepping up and saying yes, just like I have seen you do. And very proud of you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's Easter weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend at church and are able to be present. And Carter, anything you want to say?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, I know obviously you'll see this after Easter or whatever, but we hope that you do go to church tomorrow. Today is Saturday. Yeah, today is Saturday. We are going to church today, but hope that you go to church this weekend at some point. If not, after you see this, we hope you go to church the following Sunday. Just take a step in that faith and say yes. We are very proud of Brent and want to say thank you for him to taking his time on this early Saturday morning to come up here and do this. I believe we are going to have another special guest on the next episode. We won't say his name yet, just so, kind of keep it jazzy, I guess. But no, thank you for watching. And yeah, we just look forward to the next episode.
Yep. See you guys. Y'all be blessed.
Peace.
Jesus loves you.